What is going on YouTube? Does your miter saw leave giant gaps and angles like this? If so, this is the video for you. My name's Andy, this is Cedar River Woodworking, and welcome to the shop. Alright, if you have giant gaps like this, and you're trying to make some frames or anything else like that that have compounding angles on your miter saw, I'm going to show you how we can fix that. First off, I want to thank all of my members that we have so far on the channel. The community is really growing, and I'm appreciating everybody that is taking part of that. If you're not a member, that is okay. Please consider subscribing anyways, because we have videos just like this that we can make you have better tool quality from the tools that you already have. So let's get the saw unbolted from my miter station, and I will get down to the bench and show you exactly how we can make your saw that much better. Man, these things are heavy. If you're gonna be lifting and carrying these things around, it's better to get help than to be hurt while you're carrying a heavy tool around. Speaking of better help, I want to thank them for being today's sponsor. Now, if you haven't heard of BetterHelp, they are an online therapy provider. They have over 30,000 therapists available that you can talk to over messaging, video chat, and through calls. Now, I do have a unique URL that you can use to get 10% off of your first month for BetterHelp. That is betterhelp.com/cedarriver. One of the great things about BetterHelp is that they have these 30,000 therapists that if you don't quite vibe with the right one, you can always change to another one at any point in time. Now, what is something that therapy can help you with? So we're about a month into the new year so far, and we all set some New Year's resolutions. One of mine was to get into better physical shape, but also a part of physical health, you need to take care of your mental health as well. So one of the things that BetterHelp is helping me with is getting into my dedication and to stop procrastinating with things like doing my woodworking or going to the gym. BetterHelp does have an application that you can download directly onto your phone so that you can have your messaging and your video chats directly through your cell phone. So if this is something that you might be interested in, please go check out that link. I'll have it down in the description below. Again, that was betterhelp.com/cedarriver. Now let's go ahead and get back to our project. All right, so here we are with our Hercules saw. This thing is a mess right now, so we're gonna clean it up a little bit, and I will show you exactly what we're doing to tune up this saw. One of those things, when you're working with everything, make sure it's unplugged. You don't want to get injured by a saw blade here. First thing that you wanna make sure that you have on a good saw is a nice blade. I have a CMT Extreme combination blade. This is a 60 tooth model. It will drastically improve the cuts that you have for your miter saw. I will have this one linked, but keep in mind that when you are putting a blade on a miter saw, you are doing cross cuts and not rip cuts. So whatever blade you put on there, you're gonna wanna make sure it's at least a combo blade or a cross cut blade. A higher tooth blade will also give a finer cut. But speaking of fine cuts, you can see down here, I've been using a blue tape trick to help keep debris out of this throat plate here. It works, but it's not great. One of the things that you can do to upgrade this is to put a zero clearance cutting throat plate inside of here. And that is one of those things that I'm gonna do off camera. I'll actually have a completely different video for that here in a bit. So all this is doing is keeping debris out. And I did this after I already had some debris that had already been inside of here. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean this up real fast so I can show you all of the adjustments that we're gonna do to this. So what are the adjustments that we need to make to this saw? One of the things that we're going to work on is the miter. And how we can tell if this is off is this right here in front of me. What I did was I set up a stop block to about 10 inches, set my saw to 45 degrees. This does have a detent at 45 degrees, so it snaps into place. And then I made my cuts. So when you line these up, if you have anything other than a perfect fit on the end here, you can have a few different issues. One of them being that your material isn't flat on the back edge. So when it comes across the back fence, it doesn't sit completely flat on there. That could be fixed with the joiner, or if you plane it smooth, anything like that with a hand plane. But we're assuming that we have perfect material coming into this. The reason why we set a stop block is so that we're not dealing with different lengths as well. So we are only trying to make a square here that looks like a frame. So when you line these up on the outside edges here, if you have some gaps here on the last joint, that's going to indicate a few things. And it actually indicates what direction you need to move your saw. So I also had this, when I was first setting this up, there was a little bit of sap that was coming out of some of the grain on here. And that was keeping me from getting a perfect joint as well. So if you don't have clean joints, that will also be a problem. So let's go ahead and get this set up here. I do know that some of these gaps you can cover with glue and sawdust and things like that, but we're trying to have the best craftsmanship that we can straight out of the box, so we don't have any type of workarounds to fix those kind of problems. So we're gonna go ahead and set our saw here to 45 degrees, make our cuts, and then we're gonna see what the problem is. Now, to make these adjustments, I have a wrench here that is going to be what we're gonna use to adjust this settings. So my saw here and your saw may be different, but it's best to check your owner's manual or check a manual online to see what exactly you need to do. But for the Hercules double bevel miter saw, this is how I'm going to adjust it. There are 4 Torx bolts here that this actually meets up with that we can adjust. So because this one is going to get covered by the 45, I'm going to loosen it up first so that we can get to our 45 position. Now we can go through and loosen up all the rest of these. And I do leave them a little bit snug. I just break them loose so that we have a finer adjustment. You'll need to add more pressure when moving the saw, but it won't move quite as drastically when you try to move it. So if we have an issue here, right? So essentially what we're trying to do is get the outsides of our box, the opposite sides from each other, parallel to each other. Well, because we have 45s cut on each one of our boards, that error will compound by 8 times. So your saw could be off by 0.2 degrees, and at the end, it's going to be off by 1.6 degrees. So like I said, it's going to compound 8 times to the problem here. So we're trying to dial this thing in as accurately as possible. So there's a few different problems that you can have. Now, if you have a gap at the top, that means that your angle is too shallow, and you'll actually need to move your saw more positive. So how this is set at 45, we're gonna act like we're trying to move it further past 45. Granted, you don't need to move very much, remember. But if you have a peak like this, so the gap is at the bottom side of the angle, that means your angle is too sharp. So you're going to want to decrease that angle. So if you're at 45, you're going to want to move it down towards the 45 degree. So how that works is with it locked in, I can adjust this, and you can see that ring move as I adjust this saw. Now, like I said, I kept some of these slightly taut You know, they're not completely tight, so they can still move. But yeah, we're just gonna make that adjustment so that our angles are completely fine here. So the reason why we are so worried about this is because of compounding angles. I have a star video that it has 2 angles on each one of its cuts. So it's like 16 times that an angle will compound, and you can have a big gap in the middle and it's just unsightly. So that is something that we are trying to fix. So once you have verified by cutting your scrap pieces again at those 45-degree angles, then making your square and everything lines up, you can go ahead and lock down these bolts. And return your saw back to 0. Also, another one that you can have an issue with are the indicators. So like this indicator here, you can turn it so that it lines up to the exact degree that you want. You can see that mine is set at 0, and I have a small bolt here on top. You can just loosen that up and adjust that arrow so it fits exactly where you want it to be. If you're one of those people, you want it in the very center of the line, then do it that way. If you want it on the left or the right, you can set it up how you want. Everybody is different, and it is okay to be different and to have it set up exactly how you want. You're the one doing the woodworking, so do your projects the way you want. Now, the next one that we have is our bevel system. So we have a lock here and another lock. So the one lock that I rock back there is actually a detent, just like how our miter has rotation to it. This one has a lock on it, just like the knob here on the front, that will restrict it from moving. So here you can see it is free flowing, and if I engage my detent, you can see it snap into place. This one will also have indicators on it. They can also be adjusted, the same torque style bit that you can use to adjust the indicator, but also the bevel system has 2 screws in the front that you can also adjust where that's at. And it's going to be the same exact process as we did for the miter. You're going to loosen those bolts just a tiny bit, and then you can adjust it to where you want. And instead of making a box like a frame, you'll make a box, an actual box, where the edges line up to each other. So that is about all of the adjustments that we're going to make to make sure that we have all of our angles correct. There are a few other cool little features that you can do, and most modern saws have these at this point in time. And this one here is actually a depth stop. So when you bring your saw down, that is going to hit on the stop here and then make it so, let me unlock this, so that when you make your cuts, you can make sure that you have the same depth every single time. So you could be here and make your cuts. Now this you can use to make dados and things like that if you don't have the capability on your saw or on your table saw, or if this is just a quicker setup than that. So that's a cool one. There's also a slide depth stop where you can adjust that so your saw doesn't slide all the way back. So if you have a board here that is a stopper and you don't want to cut into it, you can do that as well. Anyways, I hope that this video has helped you find out a little bit more about your saw and how to set it up correctly so that you can get the best cuts possible out of it. Now, if you made it this far, let me know down in the comments below what type of saw you have. Was this applicable to your saw, or were there some other weird quirks that you have? And if there are some other ones that you want me to take a look at, I can try and get my hands on those and maybe show you how we can adjust those as well. Anyways, for now, my name has been Andy. This has been Cedar River Woodworking, and we'll see you in the next video. I'm going to show you how to tune in your table saw, miter saw, that can help you get through all of your junk and jazz.